Anyway, so phanes names, but theophanes, Dionysophanes, Diophanes, God name phanes, does seem to me that there's something going on here. At least in helping us date, even if you don't think that Dionysophanes is a take on one or the other of the Theophanes. It is putting us in the world of the 2nd century. Great, very, 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 very important people coming out from Mytilene and saving the world does seem to me to refer to these guys. So he's Aeronomos with epsilon iota. I want you to keep that one. And we can do, I think we'll do Braesos, we've got Braesos and Aurelia Artemisia. Let's do Braesos first. Probably 3rd century. This certainly Aurelia is 3rd century. So Braesos is not any of these important families. He's an archiatros, and he did everything for the city of Mytilene. It's found not in Mytilene town, but Kalaches, which is on the Gulf of Yara, which I'm going to come back to, because it probably was the Hiara site, the holy site, with a set of religious things there. That's probably what the name of the Gulf is from. And that's where the Braesos inscription was. And this is a dedication. This is the Bola and the Damos, and you looked at some inscriptions from the 4th century. This is how it goes. Damos for demos, Bola for reduplicated consonant rather than lengthened vowel. And this is, we've seen this in other places, a couple of N-neckers with 2 news, for example, rather than Hey-necker we've seen in the text. So the Bola and the Damos honours this guy in all his long career. He's an archiatron za ton paidon. Dia. Many of you may remember that in the texts of Sappho that we have, the SD sound is represented by SD. In the Apple poem, it's acro up osdo with S, with sigma delta, not with a zeta. We have a text naming Zonisos. So if this is adapting your local dialect to an Attic script. In Koine, that letter represents what we would call a Z. In Attic, it was probably DZ, Athenazde. You may remember if you did Athenazde as your Greek, Athenazde written with a zeta. So it looks as though for this dialect, zeta could be used for either zeta or dia. Dia, Dionys. In other words, you had a letter available to you. Again, we don't know if it was in the late 2nd, early 3rd century, if it was zeta or. And this is not something preserved. The lesbians called Dionysos, Zonisos, that could be the kind of thing that people remember. But dia, za for dia, that looks like it's It's an actual piece of actual dialect usage because there's no other reason to do it. Ziaton paidon kai ekgonon, again the family. Archas kai alas kai kisaphoreas kai agarmi. Okay. Archas kai alas kai kisaphoreas. Those are all accusatives with an alpha, not an alpha iota, which is what you would expect in a Ialic text. Kai auton, kai bulachian, kai nomaflekan, kai alas. And then we get onto dios, not zios, but dios aetherio. And all these other gods, incredibly long list. Kaitas Eiras Kalias. That's the hieros word again, but spelled Eiras. Kaitodios and of Polias, Athanas. He's done various things, Kupotas Polios in the dialect. And there we have our good friend Apollo Malaues. You may remember him from Thucydides, and I think we know where the site is. On Othos Longu, by the way. The actual place where they found a whole bunch of things dedicated to Apollo is on Othos Longu in Mytilene, which is just pure chance, but I love that.
Longus.
Yes, on the street of Longus, yes. Yeah. But Apollo Malaues, I want to come back to him, but the cult's still there. Archikoron, and now Eros Kalas Hiero Karuka, and even written with a rough breathing. One thing about lesbian that is absolutely certain is that it never had aspiration. We have no doubt. That's why they're able to use eta as eta. Diakaron, again, Zakaros for Diakaron. Archikaron, Hierokaraka, he's also priest of the emperor. And a third spelling of Hieros, and he's Prothuton of the Aaron of the city. And he is Periegeton. What is the Periegetas? Periegetes?
That's somebody who travels around the world?
Yeah, it's what Pausanias did. Pausanias did a periegesis.
Tour guide.
So I'd love to know what that was, especially because Longus's narrator went and asked for an ex-hegetes to explain everything to him. When we get two usages of both ex-hegetes and periegetes, one is the Pausanian word, but Pausanias says when you arrive in a town, you ask of the exegetes to tell you things. And there's also a passage of somebody else who says the same thing. When you turn up in a town city, you ask the local notable to exegesis everything. So this periegetes of this periegetes, I take it, he's the prothutes and periegetes of the Aaron of the city. He's the explainer of the. That's exactly what Longus's narrator. He couldn't go to Bressos. Bressos is probably after Longus, but that the city had a periegetes of their cults, would seem to be very much. There was a formal exegetes at Olympia, for example, who would explain things to you, who was a official of the cult at Olympia, says Pausanias. So he did this for 40 years without pay, unlike everybody before him. So, lovely long inscription, raising questions about Hieros again. And then Aurelia Artemisia, the Bolos and the Damos honored her. She's the daughter of Autuchos. She is Logion Pritanen. That was the title. That was the Archon Eponymos. That was the title of the official, of the nominal head of state of Logios Pritanis. Protanis, we've got, there's actually nothing there at all. It's Pritanis, there's a letter missing there. So they've restored Pritanis. It could have been Protanis. We have texts of other people who are called the Logios Protanis. And Protanis seems to be the more dialectal form. But here we have Aurelia Artemisia as Protanis. Hope that surprises you guys. The only other ones I've found like this is members of the imperial family, like Agrippinilla, serving as gymnasiarch at, not just at Mytilene, but other places where you serve as gymnasiarch, which means you pay for everything. So a member of the imperial family will serve, presumably when on a visit, will serve as gymnasiarch of the games, and it's a woman. But I don't know. I really don't know where Aurelia Artemisia is coming from, and I haven't done the research on the frequency of female officials. It would fit the rest of the world's view of Lesbos that women got up to do uppity things, but that's all based on Sappho. I literally don't know where that one's coming from. She's Aurelia Artemisia. What does that tell us? What is it, when you get a Roman name with Aurelia?
Connection to the imperial family?
No. Everybody got Roman citizenship in 230, Constitution. So everybody who didn't have citizenship before got to be an Aurelios, because that was the family name of Commodus who made this change. So when you start getting Aurelia all over the place, and there aren't Aurelia all over Lesbos until this point, they're all Pompeii and other names. So she is a so she's Logios Protanis Euergetin. How should that go? If you're an Euergetis, you have a female Euergetis.
Eidos.
Yeah, so Attic would be Euergetida, and again, I don't know enough about if this word, and that's what how it went in later Greek, that the Eidos class, that the is Eidos class becomes is in, and the accusative is, that's absolutely standard. But I don't know if that's local dialect or 3rd century to get that. But she's Euergetin, Iarean, Tantheon of these various gods, and Ersophoron of the Mustarion, Alpha. And here she is, still Apugonon. She's Apugonon of Potamo, and Potamo was Apugonon of of Potamos, the Namothetes, and Lesbonax, the philosopher. I don't know if that's a duel. the news have been restored. I really have my doubts on that one. I really don't know what's going on there, because dual was not Koine, that was marked Attic. But that's what it looks like, descendant of these two famous people who are, I don't think, because of her paisas, there we get the alpha iota for long alpha. On stathesas, temas. On for Anna, we got in Sappho, but we don't get a whole lot of it in between. Temas for Tebas. Hypotes Eros Bolas, and this was done by her Grammateos Aureus Proclos Just. So, there we have it. A bunch of texts in some kind of dialect. Odo believes that these people of high status went back and read their Sappho. That this was not continuing, that this was a conscious act on the part of high status people in the Roman period to go back and read their Sappho. There may have been some dialect being spoken, but there's an element going on there of something else. What's not clear to me is whether this was a conscious act of the Damos and the Bola of Mytilene and the Koinon of the Lesbians to do this, or whether it's an individual decision of the Patamones and the Theophanes. But it looks as though it's a conscious decision. About 40% of the documents from Mytilene are in dialect. It's lower in the Roman period, but there's a much higher number of these kinds of dedications. I haven't read all of them. There's an incredible long document to all of Agrippa's family, including Postumus. So there's this interplay going on between localism, which you get in Sparta, you get in Athens, with possibly continuity of the dialect.
So let me interrupt here to say that anyone needs to get on to the next class should feel free to go. People who would like to stay and ask some questions, I think there will be a few, should stay. And in the meantime, let's give a round of applause. So Colton, you should ask your question about these E's and I's from yesterday.
About the length?
Yeah. So because there's another case of, so we're looking at Timas,
Yeah.
and thinking of the hieros compounds that are either iota or epsilon iota or iota epsilon. And Colton suggested that maybe the EI is a graphic way of representing the long I, which you would have in both time and hieros.
Yeah.
They also-
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to say one of the earlier inscriptions also said Latines, something like that with.
Latine.
Yeah, the Odu Latines.
All those Latines.
Yeah.
In Koine, not in, we're getting a move of epsilon iota towards iota in Koine, generally.
In pronunciation.
In pronunciation. So we're getting, so we're getting I's represented by epsilon iota.
But we were observing that it would be, it would take two letters to reflect time with an EI instead of just an I. So that would be, so it would suggest that they would just use an I if they could, if the two sounds were the same. And so we wondered if there was some, ulterior purpose for the alternation.
No, I'd like to keep Eros apart, because that obviously was a sensitive thing going on. I think time and others latenes, that is general Koine usage, that epsilon iota has become iota, which it's, you know, it's gone from it's gone from a representation of long epsilon in Attic to epsilon iota to iota, and there's tons and tons of this, and it's the commonest spelling mistake in modern Greek.
All of the different I sounds, yeah.
Of all of the different I sounds is this one.
Yeah.
So I think time is just, this is 3rd century Koine. Hieros is, I'm fascinated by hieros, because we're getting it spelled any old which way. And I want to go back to hiera, this place named by Pliny, the holy place, which is where the Lesbos inscription was found, and the modern cult of Iera. Because this picks up another famous thing about Aeolic, which was it had the same accent rules as Latin. So it had retrograde, so Pitakos should be Pitakos, for example, all over the place. That bay is called Iera,
Hiera, right.
not Iera.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the modern Greek word for holy is still hieros. But that bay is called Iera, and there's no Turkish or Italian explanation for it.
So
But
it's a clear case of dialect continuity
it's
in this
dialect
feature, yeah.
continuity
Into modern
of-
times.
That's dialect continuity, but it's Iera, not era. So, in other words, they had adopted that place is called Hiera by Pliny.
Yeah.
That location is called Hiera by Pliny, but with an H. But anyway, but it's Hiera, not Era. It's definitely Era with a iota in Sappho. There's one other place like that. There's lots of hot springs on Lesbos. The famous one is called Thermi, final stress, and it's got a cult of Aphrodite, of Artemis Thermia. But there's another site, also on the Gulf of Iera, by the way, but that is called Tatherma, neuter plural, and initial stress.
Yeah. So these inscriptions you showed us are a melange of sort of anachronistic attempts at being lesbian, Koine, sort of misspellings, some contrived spellings.
Well, I think it's a bit more learned than that. I think that we've no idea about accents because there's no inscription. So I'm assuming that dialect was still spoken, but all these people functioned in Koine, like Crinagoras, like Theophanes. I assume that Theophanes' history of Pompey was not written in dialect.
Yeah, but presumably the Phanes characters could speak Koine. I mean, they could possibly do dialect as a secondary thing, but the people on the countryside like Daphnis and Chloe would, if anybody, would be speaking dialect.
You know, we can all do Southern. I can talk North Country like Fiona Hill if I want to. You know, if you live in a multi-dialectal context, you can do that.
Yeah.
It looks that because of Sappho, this was not country dialect. You know, there's no high poetry in County Durham, as it were, but there is, and there is high poetry in Provençal, Bayerish, and so on. You know, where you get a culture in dialect, that's going to push it more. So we're getting this conscious use, and I think specific things, stratagos for strategos, fairly conscious, partly influenced by local speech, but also influenced by the cultural heritage. And as I say, what I need to do is Sparta, because Sparta was really big on pushing its Spartan heritage.
Right, for tourism and other purposes. Yeah.
They did put out coins of Sappho in the Roman period. There's one coin with Pittacus and Alcaeus on it, but it's one coin, and I'm not sure because of that it's genuine.
Same side or other sides? The flip
No,
side.
flip side.
Huh.
That right doesn't
That's
look
right.
to me.
Flip
That
the
looks
coin.
to me like not a standard issue coin. That somebody somewhere did a thing, and he's Pittacus with a phi, by the way. And the coins of Sappho are with a psi, as she is in the poem when she's addressed Timide psaph arichaes. Remember that. So yeah, lots of alphas, lots of omicrons for so on, but it's a little artificial. So, less artificial than Balbillo and Molino, though. I think they were more more influenced by. And as I say, it may have the continuation of the accent looks to me to be genuine. There are also names with alpha, place names. The southern tip south of Mytilene, which was called Malea, and I'm sure is associated with Apollo Maloes, is called Amalia now. Amali. There's a it's named after. There's a chapel on the peninsula, which is Panagia Amalis, which should mean Panagia of the. That's Amalis. So I'm sure it's the apple word. And you may know I've hunted apples all over Lesbos. Mala, that word. So there are names that look like they've preserved the alpha from. Well, there's no reason not to. There's no reason it should not be that. Marthimna has become Mythimna, though, but it became Molivos.
Yeah. What's the origin of Molivos, the modern
It's
name
lead.
for Mythimna?
It's lead.
But do you know when it comes in for the area?
Late Byzantine, early Genoese.
Is it a source for lead?
Yeah, it's actually not lead, but it's a source of something they call. Yeah, there are actually some mine in that area. It's molybdenum, which is not lead. Is that right?
Well, isn't it an Anatolian loanword?
Well, setting that aside, I was asking the chemistry question. Isn't molybdenum a different element from lead, from plumbum?
Alice isn't here. We have one scientist.
Yeah. It's molybdenum, which sounds like the same word, which is not plumbum. In other words, there were two things with leady names in the periodic table. There are good Anatolian sources for that word, but it's a source for that. Just there's a place called Stipsy which is.
What's Stipsy?
It's the stuff you use. Alum.
Huh. For cosmetics?
No, for treating cloth.
Huh.
Anyway, so there's lots of good. So Molivos, but the Archbishop, of course, is still of Mythimna. I didn't look at coins. There are coins don't have very much. They have lots of alphas, and we have a fair number of Mytilenaon without the iota, which is dealing with my question of what does that AI stand for. It's Mytilenaon. One more thing. I showed you that lovely passage from Plutarch about the Xeni saying "Ale mul ale." Kaiga Pitakas ale megalas mutilanas basilewon. It is always got an eta for the third syllable. Always consistently in the documents. It clearly was mutilena, but if you're not familiar with dialect, any eta becomes you change any eta for an alpha. So our manuscripts of Plutarch quoting Thales, quoting Xeni in Eresos, turning her
Mill.
turning her corn, milling her corn, and saying, and this is all to show that even tyrants have to have. The whole point was these tyrants owned farms and worked the land and weren't. That was the point that that they were making. But they remembered this line about Kaigar Pitikos. There's nothing in Ale Mule Ale that is dialect, but Megalas, Mutulanas, Basileon. But it's written with an eta, and I don't, with an alpha, and I don't know if that's Plutarch thinks it's that way or our manuscripts.
It's a hyperdialectalism.
It's a hyperdialect.
Yeah.
It looks like a hyperdialectalism. Mutulanas, yeah. And of course we know that Mytilene is big, don't we? Because Mytilene esti polis, megali kakale is the
Yeah.
opening of chapter 1.
Yeah.
So great Mytilene, megala Mytilena, Mytilana. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, come with your questions, but one of you asked me